3 GM openings in the league right now. And guess what? The other 2 suck. Honestly. So you can't sit there and be like, oh, the Jets is definitely the worst one. The Titans, it seems like you have no power there. The roster's terrible. The Raiders, well, you always have Tom Brady over your shoulder, and you don't have much there either. So even if you say the Jets, it's a tougher place to get right, it's even on a normal day with the Titans and the Raiders. And some might say it's better because of the talent. So why do you have to go down that road? I don't think you have to go down the road just to get Brian Flores. And like you said, Joe, if you do, I don't know if Flores is the right guy then, right? Like that's something they were willing to do for Mike Vrabel, where I think if Vrabel got the job, we would have been very happy. But I think we would have been really underwhelmed by the front office hires that he made. And I'll leave it at that. And that's fine. You sell your soul to get Vrabel here.
Yeah.
So I think at the end of the day, my question is, you can feed me all of these different, why it'll be different with Grigson this time. But at the end of the day, it's just taking a road that is so unnecessary when there's so much promise for guys that haven't had a crack at this yet.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. And, I could see, the Jets, you're doing these interviews, 4,000 of them. And, a guy comes in and makes a very compelling case. He's done the job before, so he knows what it's like dealing with the media and dealing with everything that comes with being a general manager. And, someone who's hired people, like there's a certain comfort that comes with someone who's like a little more experienced and has done this before. And they're like not learning certain aspects on the job. But is that just a cop-out instead of swinging for the fences? And are you doing this because – and this is the same thing on the other half of it. If you hire like a Nagy to be your head coach, are you doing it because there's a floor of being like a 7-10 to 9-8 team the next 3 years and like just having some version of like baseline stability versus saying, you know what? Maybe Hallaby is the next great GM. Maybe Borgonzi is the next great GM. Maybe, Josh McCown is going to be the hottest coaching commodity 2 years from now after he has a great year of being an OC and makes Tyrod Taylor a Pro Bowler. But let's just hire him a year early before he gets poached by somebody else, by the Giants after they fire Dable in a year. So do the Jets have that confidence to make that kind of leap? And look, if Grigson gets hired, it's going to be a tough sell to the fan base. And we'll hear the whole story and pitch about why it could work, and we're going to approach it skeptically, like we've done about other things in the past. And yes,
you know what his best move was, by the way?
What?
When he traded for Trent Richardson. I want to make sure I have the exact details right. But Richardson played for the Browns for 2 years, coming off a really bad second year. He traded, I believe, at least a first-round pick. Yeah. A first-round pick in 2014 for Trent Richardson. Or 2013.
Richardson, Dorsett, and Werner, those three being first-rounders, it's tough. It's a tough mark. You can't, it just has to be like, I've learned since then. But what is like, beyond luck doesn't really count. What are other positive moves or moments we're missing?
Right. I mean, positive?
Yeah, like, is there something big we're missing? Like, I look at the drafts and they're ugly on paper. Like, they're really ugly on paper.
No.
It's not there.
Right. It's also, the problem is, it's one thing, like, everybody has bad drafts, right? Everybody makes bad trades. And those drafts and that trade are about as bad as it gets at times. The feeling around the organization and what the organization was left with. Chris Ballard got to that organization and he told them, like, I need years to clean up what was left here. This is in ruins. So it's one thing to be, like, Idzik was bad, right? We all knew it. And it was 2 years and you're like, he just doesn't have it. But Idzik was never, he was a little strange, I think, in press conferences. You never looked at him when, like, this guy's a disaster. Like, he's despised. He's shouting at people. He's fighting with people. Players hate him. They mock him on social media. And Maccagnan was just bad. But nobody hated Mike Maccagnan. Grigson, I mean, once again, like, just Google. There are players and people from the Colts that hated everything about that era. That's really scary stuff. I mean, and once again, you know what? If he changed, good for him, because he's probably making a great living being an assistant GM. And maybe that's the right balance for him because there's more power above him that keeps him in check. But it's weird how not we, because we don't do this, but the NFL doesn't allow people to just be good at what they're good at. Like, you always got to have more, right? Steve Spagnuolo, perfect example. Great defensive coordinator, phenomenal. Super Bowl rings. Bad head coach, didn't work. Don't need to see it again. Don't care.
Still interviewing with the Jets.
Still interviewing. And you know what? Like, good for him. But would I feel the need to speak with him as the Jets right now? No, I wouldn't. Wouldn't feel the need. So it's just, and that's an example of we just don't need more. Ryan Grigson, bad GM. Seems like everybody in Minnesota is really happy with him as the assistant. Good for them. You can keep him. Like, you don't always need to do the thing where you're like, hey, you're this and you're good at it. And the last time you were in this elevated role, you were terrible at it. But let's try it again because we're sure it'll be different this time. I'm just not interested. And even if they hire him and it's like, we're going to sit here and be like, let's see what he's got. Because what other choice do we have, right? We don't have a choice. We're not in these interviews.
Yeah, we're not there. But I mean, I think all the points you made are incredibly fair. And I think Jet fans being very skeptical of this being a front runner in this kind of search, we're coming off 30-64. Like, you're damn right, Jet fans are going to be skeptical of anything that doesn't really pass the initial sniff test. And it's just been interesting to watch the wind change on how once predictions kind of start stacking up, you wonder, one, if there's smoke, there's fire. Two, that's not always the case, though. Sometimes certain other things are going on. And it's also, this process I don't think is done yet. I think we're kind of maybe jumping the gun. Famous last words. We'll be recording an emergency pod in 6 hours for all I know, but I think it's going to be 6 or 7 days before we jump to War Room, because we're at about the 30-minute mark and I want to save some for there. Let's wrap with your final predictions. I'm recording this Monday night. My guess is by this time next week, when we're recording in our normal slot, we have an idea of where this is. So what is your prediction for who the Jets hire as their GM and head coach as of right now?
This is me saying, like, I'm hopeful rather than thinking it certainly will happen. Borgonzi. I hope it's Borgonzi. I think that, one, he deserves a shot. Yeah.
Yes.
Come back to the Northeast, Borgonzi. I think that it would tell me this was a real process. And I'd feel the same way about Hallaby, by the way. If they hired Borgonzi or Hallaby, I'd feel, okay, we're trying something different. And I think that the Jets, if they hire Grigson, it just, to me, tells me that they bought into his plan that Flores and McCown are with him, which is fine. But I just don't know why. If you hire Borgonzi, you're telling me Flores and McCown are going to be like, no thanks. Yeah. Get the fuck out of here. Like, what are we doing? So, yeah, I think I just always try to apply logic to a place where logic, unfortunately, doesn't always apply. But Borgonzi's the best candidate, along with Hallaby, in my opinion, that haven't had the job yet. I think Dimitroff was a good candidate, too. I mean, he interviewed a month ago. But I think Borgonzi and Hallaby are the two guys that haven't had the seat that deserve a shot. I'll go with Borgonzi. I'd be happy with either of them. And then I think if Borgonzi gets the job, the head coach search becomes fascinating. Because then it's like, this could go a lot of different directions. But I don't know. There's so much buzz around Grigson, and usually when there's that much buzz, I go like, man, this is coming from too many places that I'm not just going to buy in that it's a done deal. And I mean, maybe I'm the fool. We'll see. What about you? Are you buying that there's just too much buzz around Grigson that you think it's real?
I think the buzz is real. My guess is he did really well in his first interview.
I think he's a real candidate. Yeah.
Oh, I think I think he did well in his first interview, and the Jets are trial ballooning it out a little bit, which all franchises do. It's the Jets are not.
They love to do that, which
the Jets really love to do it, but I think they're trial ballooning it out right now. And we'll see. You'll see that it lands and how they, react to the different elements of that trial balloon process. My guess is Borgonzi's a very serious candidate. I take Cimini's predictions pretty seriously because of how long he's been there and how plugged in he is. And I feel like those two are the most likely to get the job by a decent margin. I would like Hallaby to be a serious candidate. I'm not sure if he is. I think we might just be wish casting a little bit. I don't think Greenberg's a serious candidate. I don't think Dimitroff is a serious candidate.
I'm saying it now, so when Hallaby, rebuilds, God, give me a team.
Don't say the Giants.
No, not the Giants. They're too old school. I don't know. Hallaby ends up taking over whatever franchise in how many years, and they're like the mini Eagles, and everyone's like, "Oh, cool." I'm just putting it out
That was
there,
the guy to take, not Joe Douglas.
Yeah.
I think if you ask me as of today, it will be Borgonzi or Grigson. I think Spielman is like a deep dark horse, maybe to keep an eye on.
Just hard to evaluate. Like, full transparency, I just can't evaluate that one because he hasn't done it.
Yeah,
seems like a very respectable frontman for an organization. Yeah. He would have been our OG plan from 2 months ago. Like, go get a president of the whole thing, and then he hires,
and then let him make the hire.
Yeah.
And then at head coach, I think it'll probably be Glenn or Flores. To be honest, I don't think that's like going on a limb. I would be one of those two. I really like to see them find a way to land Glenn. I think he wants the job
with McCown. That's the Godfather
awesome.
move.
That would be awesome. I'm sure. Is McCown not going to take the job if he wants it because Glenn's the head coach? I don't think that's the case, but who the hell knows?
McCown really liked it here. I can't say it enough. Like he did.
I just don't want to read that the Jets made a late push, but Glenn picked the Saints. Like, I just can't read that. Like, give me a fucking break, man. If he wants to be here and you want him, like, get the goddamn deal done. I don't want to read about the Jets almost closing a deal ever again. Either close or shut up. Close or shut up. No one cares. No one wants to hear it.
For a team,
get your guy.
Yeah, for a team that really cares about PR, they're really terrible at it quite often.
Don't leak out the close. Fans don't want to hear about it. We made a whole joke running thing about it with the almost Jets. Like, we don't want to hear it. If you don't get him, you don't get him. But like, we don't need like the cleanup after that. They made a late push, so we'll see. Look,
let me ask you something before we close. I know it's unfair to do this because you should always grade something when the results are in, but you could grade a process. How would you grade the 33rd team search so far on a scale of 10?
I'll generously say a 4.5 or a 5.
I didn't think you were going to do that, but I'm glad you did.
I just think I'm
with you.
Sometimes the net's just a little too wide from my perspective.
It seems like favors galore.
Yeah, I kept doing a favor or two, but when like 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 of your interviews are like, what are we doing? Like, then I'm like, are we just being taken for a ride to help someone else's private equity business? Like that's kind of where my head goes. That's harsh, and that could be wrong. They can nail this process, and no one respects Mike Tannenbaum's work for the Jets more than me. I will always stand up for his work here. For everything I know about Spielman, he's a great dude and like a smart guy, and
he's
a good GM in the NFL. It's a different element. It's also not just their company. I know they're the front men for the operation. It's a bigger, more complex thing than that. So it's been a weird search. I'm not going to act like it hasn't been a weird search. Maybe the Jets need weird, and maybe it works. And maybe this is better. Certainly, probably better than what they were doing with McCagnon and Heimerdinger in 2019 before they fired McCagnon and Heimerdinger right after the whole process. But I don't know. Where would you set the number before we wrap?
The tough part is because you sit here, right, and Bet will give a huge pass on Ben Johnson. Like, Ben Johnson has been a borderline pain in the ass with the way you hear about him now at this point, which, yeah, good for him. But the thing is that's funky, and I fell victim to this too. I think sometimes we go, like, oh, Liam Cohen and Cliff Kingsbury, like they weren't interested in coming here. You hire somebody to be the front people of your search because of their connections and their desirability and their relationships. So if you can't even get some of the big names in here, then you hired the wrong people, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing where I look back on and go, like, I don't need to see that the Jets interviewed Ray Farmer, honestly. Like, I don't need to see that the Jets interviewed Darren Rizzi. We don't need to do this. And there's a couple in there that, like, if you just do some basic Googling, there's clearly, favors, as I said. The Rex one, I think it was funny, and then it was, wait a second, this is real, and then it all of a sudden became sad. I haven't enjoyed this, honestly.
No. We're gonna forget it happened, hopefully, and that.
Yeah, I just think I think everybody looked bad in it, and that kind of pains me. So I'm with you. 4.5 out of 5 is fair, like you said. I really have a lot of respect for Tannenbaum and Spielman and what they've done in the NFL, but I've been really underwhelmed. I just think that there's people that know who the hot names are deeper in the league right now, and it's lacked creativity. That's what I've been somehow searching for this entire rant. It has been woefully uncreative, and the point of these things are, for one, connections, and two, to do it differently than how you would do it. And the reality is, don't you kind of feel like Woody Johnson and Christopher Johnson could have read Albert Breer's annual article of future stars and head coaching candidates, and they could have made their own interview list? I know it's really harsh for me to say, but I felt like there was some kind of medium where we need to say, like, let's call it what it is. Like, the search is, the results might be fine. They might be fine, but I don't think it's something that needed to be billed for. That's the best way I can put it.
Build hourly for it. Build
like somebody comes to your house and because you need them to look at something and they really do nothing and they leave, and then in the mail you get a $200 bill and you're like, well, I could
sadly I've had that happen before.
We all have had that happen.
I can empathize with that. Well, thank you everyone for listening. Make sure to check out War Room. And the feed's going to be loaded this week. Obviously, we're preparing for any and all emergency pods, but if not, there's plenty of stuff cranking every single day. Hoodies are on sale at badlandstoj.com. Get them before Paul puts his order in. I think we've sold 13 of the 25, so go grab one of the last 12. Very nice. Got a nice logo on them. Comfy. Thank you everyone for listening. We'll talk to you soon.